house the other day in the hallway. You're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
Hey, and welcome to Justice Serve TV. Michael Bryant here.
Hi, Linda Kenny here, and we have people waiting for us. So thank you for joining us. Kerfuffle. I used that term last week. I think it was, and Michael Bryant was a little bit surprised. I knew what kerfuffle
I like the word
was.
kerfuffle. I like that.
It's really
I put
a
that
good
up there
word.
with sus.
Yeah. With suss. Yeah, I'm gonna suss it out. But that's a case. That's Karen Reed. We're gonna be talking about that some other time, like tomorrow night. Karen, we have so much
Karen
today.
Reed tomorrow night, and Penny, which we got. Hey, before we get into any of this, and I did not put this on our little rundown for the day, but it's pissing me off so much I have to share. This looks like just a normal package, right? It looks like a package. And let me apologize to Sheila. That's all I can say. I don't want to say any more than that. This is Sheila's mug. Okay. This was sent out. Let's see if I can find without giving away, addresses and things. I want to see if I can pick. Oh, there's the date. Cover this up. Can you see the date when it was shipped out there? October 17th. Got it back today or the last couple of days. Okay, so it had to go through customs because it was going to a foreign country, and it's stamped, return to sender, rejected, failed electronic customs clearance. It's a mug. It's not a bomb. It's not, there's no battery in it. It's a mug.
Oh my God, Sheila, are you on tonight?
I apologize to Sheila because I still have it. And I'm going to go down to the post office, not tomorrow because I'll be in Manhattan for Penny, but Thursday, they don't want to hear from me, and they will. So this, it will get there. At some point, it will get there.
Oh my gosh, okay. I was just telling Shannon said there was no notice. Wow. We that's terrible because we did put it on. We did put it on as a live to go future. Should have notice. Wow. I'm gonna, as you're talking, Michael, for a second, let me go on to our live Justice Serve page. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit, some of our usual associates. We're not available today to do some of the promotion, but usually, even we get that part right.
Yeah, even that. Well, it doesn't look like there's a little bell there. I have to tell you, you're gonna hear me, and you're gonna hear me in stereophonic right now because I'm gonna put it on there. I'm gonna put it in stereophonic. It's added to my thing, but there's no little bell. Where's our little bell? You're right.
I don't know where the hell's the bell?
Right. Where the heck is the bell? So, oh my gosh, this is a terrible page. If I'm going to take a screenshot of this, I'm going to post this someday to our members. This is a shot that I get on. Steve for the Lord. You're on with it, but right now I'm not going to send this out to anybody because it looks pretty awful. But anyhow, yes, we are somehow, our little bell, our little notification didn't go on. But thank you. But anyhow, spread the word. Spread the word. Okay, spread the word. Here comes drama. Maybe you can help us. You're a moderator. Why isn't our notification going off to everybody that we are live? What did we do wrong? We're lawyers.
Yes, I'm confident. I'm confident we did something wrong. That is definitely not the issue.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about tonight. We're going to go like overtime for us, but it's justified. I just get back from this trip, and I hope folks enjoyed some of my little trinkets that I splashed around from Paris, Normandy, Prague. It was a fun trip. It was a good time was had by all, and I was happy to share a couple of those experiences because why? Most importantly, when I write off these expenses through the IRS, I have something to show that I was actually there. So
I gotta take my earpiece out with that one and put it back in.
I think
I didn't hear a word that he said.
Yeah, members got that. I'm always in trouble with the IRS. I'm in trouble with them right now. I'm always in trouble with the IRS. Why? Because I don't like the government, and I challenge them when they do stupid things.
Well, you know what? There's a group of people that didn't like the government either, Michael Bryant. And
were they in Atlanta?
Yeah, I when this was going on today, I have to tell you a funny story because we've been covering this, right? at all. And I had canceled my morning appointment that was 2 hours, but I kept a meeting on that was like about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And in that 45 minutes to an hour is when the judge came out and said, first, the jury had a question. No, it's a verdict. I got back. I was like, it was already had been read and I had to redo it. Wait,
It was,
wait,
you know, the
I
funny
had this
thing.
case on all the time. And the one time I have to like attend to a client, I couldn't put it off. That happened.
I thought it was so funny, just in the way that it unfolded, because we've either received verdicts in our own cases or have reported on them. Every jurisdiction is different, whether it's a state, even within a certain state, various counties do things just a little differently. I don't think anybody can forget the OJ reading of that verdict, whether you were around then or you've watched it on replay, where the clerk stumbled over his name. The clerk's got the pressure. Well, I was surprised in Fulton County they don't do that. The judge, I mean, normally, this is whatever normal is, right? Tell me if I'm off here on my normal. Okay, here's the jury, here's the verdict form. Judge looks it over. Yep, looks, the judge needs to make sure it's not facially invalid, like they left blanks,
Right.
And there are cases we've covered where they have screwed up the verdict form and they got to go back and fix it. And then normally the judge would hand that back to the bailiff, and the bailiff would hand it to the foreperson, madam or sir.
The tension
Yeah.
builds, and if you're a lawyer, you're sitting there, the pit in your stomach is up to your throat. And you want to throw up.
Exactly. But not so much today. Should we watch that just so we can relive
Yes,
how
let's watch
quickly it
and
happened?
then we can go back. Right.
I think I was very surprised. I thought it was the setup to the verdict, not the actual verdict.
Can I just say something before you go?
Sure.
I think that Doug Weinstein and his client did too, because everyone's just like,
I do too.
No one expected.
I do too. Let's watch this.
All right, good morning. Sure.
That's totally off mic, which happens a lot, as we know in this case.
And that's the court reporter who wears the Converse sneakers that little Woody liked.
All right, good morning, everybody. We have a verdict. We have two verdicts. And I do not want there to be any kind of disruption or disturbance in court, regardless of what this verdict is. So, can we get the jury out, please?
So I thought we'd let this play out a little bit to at least create some drama. They're called in. We have a verdict. Okay, this is.
Oh, Miss Love's head got in the way.
Look at these. Look at the attorneys now as they're watching and searching for every juror's face. Are they connecting with me? Are they looking at my client? Are they looking away? Which people would suggest means I just stuck it to your client.
They're just standing up for the jury right now, remember?
Yes, jury's coming in, and they're eyeballing the jury, especially Max Shart. And this, up to this point, pretty normal. What you would expect in virtually all cases.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that you all have reached a verdict. Mr. Foreperson, is that correct? All right, and was it unanimous? Yes. All right, and this verdict has been filled in and signed and dated by you, correct? For each defendant. All right, and I noticed that Mr. Kendrick's verdict form is dated December 2nd. Is that because that's when you all reached the verdict with regard to him? Okay, and then Mr. Stillwell's is dated today. Okay. All right, Mr. Kendrick, you have been found not guilty on all charges.
He's not even out of his seat when she told him.
Mr. Stillwell, can you please stand?
Max is like, I
You
can't
have
get
been
up.
found guilty on count 64, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and not guilty on every other charge.
What a moment.
It's just like, Judge, can we re-rack that? I don't feel I got my moment here.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are officially released from further service, and I cannot express the degree of thanks that Fulton County owes you for your service. Given the length of this trial, you have paid close attention this entire time, and I appreciate your devotion, as I'm sure do the parties in this case. You are welcome to stay for the sentencing, or you can return to the jury room. I would like to speak with you in just a moment in the jury room. If you all do want to stay, you're welcome to stay. Is there any objection to the form or the legality of this verdict?
That was Hilton.
Any from the defense? All right. All right. Is there any reason that we can't go ahead and sentence? You may.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a blurb here while they're trying to. This is. I think it's ironic. I think it's ironic with as slowly and laboriously and painfully this case has played out. That okay, there's your verdict. Let's do some sentencing. How about that? I mean,
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And yesterday I tweeted that it sounded to me when they were asking about the Stillwell, the videos, that they had reached a verdict on Kendrick, right, on Yak Gotti. And sure enough, they had signed and dated that verdict for him yesterday. Now, technically, they could come out and say we have a verdict on one person, and jurors are never told that. And Doug Weinstein would have been like, okay, I'm ready. I can get a good night's sleep. Especially since his client, you see his client has the stitches for being stabbed.
Yeah, we're going to look at that. I have a nice close, those are staples in his head. We're going to get into that because it does have some impact on whether these guys get out of prison jail now, even though A, acquitted and B, on probation, as to Mr. Stillwell. Yeah. So yeah, that's a whole, that's like a
whole other thing. But the judge went through them. I remember in Casey Anthony, the judge got the things and he was going through it. You could see that it was not guilty because he was getting such a mad look on his face. And in other states, the judge doesn't even see the verdict forms before. The jury just reads them off, and then the judge looks at them afterwards.
Which I think that's dangerous. I think that's dangerous.
That is dangerous too. Although, wow, it was so quick. And the jury, I think somebody here put that they thought that who was it that said they thought there was a question? That's one of our commentators. Well, let's listen for a second. We'll go back to the comments here.
And thanks to Kimberly for hitting that like button. Appreciate that. So remember, you got one acquittal. There won't be a sentence there. And then you have
sentencing. Is the state? I know the state had filed a recidivist notice. Yes. Do y'all intend to stand on that? Yes. All right.
Of course,
so
because we're idiots.
The recidivist is A and C recidivist. That means that I have no discretion but to sentence to the maximum on that count. And the sentence possibility is 5 to 10. I must sentence to 10 years. However, I can probate any part of that sentence at my discretion. And so the court sentence on count 64 for Mr. Stillwell is going to be 10 years to serve 2, with credit for time served, the balance served on probation. All right.
Look at Doug. Doug's even smiling.
Doug is like, cool, you too. Yeah. All righty. I think that is there. I think
recess for a moment,
Yeah.
And we will reconvene on the status conference in a few minutes.
Which I think is also very interesting. It's like with the most rapid speed. All of a sudden, they know what the hell they're doing down there. We're going not just from a verdict to sentencing to what about these other dangling defendants? Let's get those things going and see where they are. Because I think technically there's supposed to be a trial next week. But that's not happening.
December 10th, right? That's not happening. And in the same courtroom, because she had said something about it last week. But I formally apologize on Twitter today to Judge Whitaker, because when she first took over the case, Michael, and she didn't take that off ramp, by letting the jurors go, and
basically
the jurors
a mistrial
didn't take that
off ramp,
right? The mistrial off ramp. I said, well, she's doing the same thing. She's keeping the rulings, not revisiting the rulings and the lyrics, which you and I both thought were just ridiculous. And all
still do.
And there's still some issues, and she's not coming down on the state. And then Michael Bryant's, what did she do? She came down on the state. She said she was going to grant mistrials, and she moved this trial. And she also told the next trial, ain't going to be no 3-year trial. It's 2 months. That's
I
it.
heard. I heard even the state. I think it was Atkins. Atkins was the man on an island there. He was the only one left for this status hearing. Everybody else, Love, Hilton, they bailed probably straight to the bar. But and I don't mean the bar for law. So he said 3 months, and the judge was like, okay, that seems reasonable. I think I do have that. We'll get to that. Before we move on here, let's take a look at the actual verdict form. I think that way we can, get a better sense of maybe what it looked like for this jury and whether it made some sense for them or not. This is kind of a broad brush, but you can tell that, it's pretty straightforward. As verdict forms go, pretty good, pretty easy to figure out. And this is again is just
pretty nice.
Diamante
Look at closely. Look at those nice, clear, even check marks.
Yes, very good. Well, and as we'll hear from the juror 56 here coming up in a little bit, that doesn't surprise me that his check marks, if in fact he's the one that did those, and I would assume he did, are orderly, because he seems like a guy that's got his stuff together. So
now I know
anyway.
you have a rundown for us, but we are going to be talking about juror 56 because he's the one who said he couldn't be fair to the state at some point because they just created such a mess. Remember? And I was just explaining on X Twitter today, it's at Kenny Bodden, if you want to go, and we always tag Justice Served TV, that, if a juror says, hey, I'm in the middle of the trial and I really, I can't really be fair the way you're presenting, that they feel that way about witnesses too. As long as they haven't made up their mind, that's fine. If you've created such a mess in your case that's how the juror is feeling, so what? Tough luck. The juror is staying unless they said they can't have made up their mind, and he didn't. And the judge said, you're not going anywhere. And he certainly wasn't going anywhere. He ended up being the foreperson.
And, we theorized about that. What if that guy's the foreperson? Because with that kind of outspoken attitude, who knows? And let's taking that bias concept back a step. Everything that happens in a courtroom, people, evidence, argument, it's all biased. There is, if you don't have a bias to whatever you're presenting, why are you presenting it? Right? It has to be prejudicial in favor of your client. There has to be a bias in favor of your client. So there's bias rampant in a courtroom, but you have to be able to expose it and use it to your advantage if it's the other side that's biased against you.
Right. And you've picked jury. We all know. We all say, oh, we want to get a fair jury. No, you're looking for a jury that's going to accept
unfair toward you.
Unfair towards you. I mean, unfair towards them, but fair towards you.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, apparently there was an alternate who's all over the airwaves today. Whoa. She was an alternate, and she's like, oh, the state got treated unfairly. The defense disrespected Judge Glanville. Now, she may be doing that just because that's the only way to get on the airwaves, right?
Well,
I would have hung that jury, she said, if I had been in there. Well, yeah, there's nice talk and big talk now, but not when you're with 11 people. And you've got to actually talk about the evidence or lack of it beyond a reasonable doubt. So, talk about bias. I mean, if she had got on the jury, maybe it would have biased the other way, and we wouldn't be here smiling.
Or it truly would have gone on and on and on. I mean, because, again, if she was legitimate about the things she was saying, she was as adamant about the way she felt as 56 was about the way he felt. His bias was interesting. It was honesty. I'm biased because I'm honest about assessing how the state seems to be handling this case. Her bias, again, if legit from this alternate juror, it just seemed to be like, I'm for the home team. I don't care how they play. I hope they win.
And supposedly she's a legal assistant. So I wonder where she's a legal assistant at.
Within the government, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe within the government. Maybe she knows people who know people. She does, So, I mean, I always get a little concerned. Not so much when I see a lawyer, because they get in there and they do the lawyer thing, right? If I could get her on a jury, I would be doing my lawyer thing, right? It's beyond a reasonable doubt. This is what we have to But a legal assistant, I'm not sure that they can, if depending on who they're employed by, who they may be employed by, it's like you can't have a cop on the jury when you're trying a police misconduct case.
Of course, logic. It's just common sense. Okay, should we move on? You got something else? Okay, I'm just checking my notes.
I know you have your rundown, but I do want to, when we get here to the Gap girl, Fani and her whole office needs to be investigated. And Fani, we're going to get to that during the show because this was not a good day for Fani Willis.
Not a good day.
Let's. Michael's worked very hard getting these clips together, getting this
Yeah,
rundown
check
together.
these notes out. Woo! These are doctor's notes. I was signing for something. It was something while I was on my trip, and somebody said, "Are you a doctor?" It was brutal. I said, "Close. I'm an attorney." And so, we write only slightly more legibly.
We have a lot of people on the chat here. Come on and join into the chat. We want to hear what you have to say. And I just say, this is a safe place. If you believe like the alternate, then it's also a safe place. We'll discuss that. Okay. Max is going to give an interview. Kimberly Johnson says soon. Well, I hope it's after we finish. Okay. I hope it's after we finish. We have a number of requests out, by the way, and hopefully by tomorrow night we'll have requests in here in the studio. He's
been very quiet, during this whole thing. Doug's been the guy that's been kind of out there, but he's been very quiet. So
not out there like boo 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 boo, but out there and like being honest. And I have to tell you, I don't know if any of the jurors saw that, but whatever it is, that honesty that came through here and the likability that came through, and 29 times we either interviewed him or talked about him on our show in the last 2 months, since we started, this after Labor Day. You and I started Justice Served TV, and the likability just came, it just oozed through. I mean, it had to ooze through to the jury also.
No doubt about it, because someone once said, "Never underestimate the power of likability." Somebody once said that. Yeah. That's right.
That's Michael Bryan.
Okay. So here, speaking of Mr. Likeable, here's his brief comments. Then we'll get to Max Sharp, but let's start with Mr. Weinstein.
Just your reaction. What happened?
Diamante and I were I want to say we were surprised because given that the jury had clearly been looking at all the evidence, we thought that this was the only outcome they could really come to. But nevertheless, we were thrilled. Just he's looking forward to getting out, getting back to his music, getting back to his family, all the supporters he's had, all the prayers, all the love. It's been wonderful. And I didn't say this earlier to everybody else, but I have got to thank Judge Whitaker. The entire case changed when she took over. We got a fair trial. And anyway, it's just a wonderful experience. Sir.
Look at that smile.
He's. Can we say he's giddy? I think he might be giddy.
Giddy too. But you know what? I got to give him credit because he and Max. Remember when the mistrial, everyone took to get out because they could be stuck in Rice Street or in the neighboring jail, depending on where they were housed and all. And he said, "I think we're winning." And he, they rolled the dice because they didn't. His client said he's not guilty. He didn't do anything. And he's just a member. It's not illegal to be a member of the gang. He's working on his music. He was a wannabe, working with somebody who was big and working on the music. And they played some of the music. We'll get to that in court. Mm-hmm. And he took a gamble here. And not only did he take a gamble, but he ended up when he said, "I don't think they've proven a case or they have a case." I don't think they have a case. It's a
ballsy position to take. It is so difficult because you're hanging your client out there, based on your expertise. But that doesn't make it any easier. I mean, that is a sphincter tightener, if you know what I mean. It's a tough move. And so,
Michael Bryant, how many criminal cases has Doug Weinstein tried?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's see. After today, 1. So here's what I think is interesting about that. And I think it's a bit of a misconception. The law is the law, whether it's applied to a civil matter or a criminal matter. The difference, of course, is that with a criminal matter, you're not talking about money. You're talking about a person's freedom or even their life if it's in a death penalty state. But the nuts and bolts are the same. That likability we talked about, clearly the same. Evidentiary rules, clearly the same. Witnesses, how to handle them, cross-examine them, directly. All of that is the same. Right. So what you do is you're a little bit more of a pressure cooker because the downside is not just money. Who cares? Money. There's no more debtor's prison. If you owe on something through a court action, then you pay it and you move on, or you go bankrupt. But this is somebody's life, somebody's freedom. So max credit, not Max Sharp, to Doug Weinstein for making that change. But my point is the nuts and bolts are the same. And he was good before and won. He's good now in the criminal field. So who knows what he'll do next.
Who goes in? Usually you go from the criminal field and you turn all the way to civil, because I have a civil practice too, and all. So, and then and the same thing you say. Look, if I lose in a civil case, no one's going to jail. It's just money, right? No one's going to jail. Everyone's going to be unhappy. I'm going to be out money. The client's going to be out money. But no one, you go home, you sleep in your own bed. But you lose in a criminal case, my God, it is, especially when you have an innocent client. There's nothing worse than having an innocent client, and who may look guilty to the public, but that's the worst. Those are the worst cases, Michael Bryan.
I mean, the second guessing, what could I have done? What would have changed this jury's mind? And, we've seen enough now of jurors. And even in this case, if you compare the alternate speaking out and the jury foreman, in this case, speaking out, you don't know what you're going to get on the jury. You don't know what aberrations they're going to be that could take that case where your guy's innocent and put him behind bars. Let's look at Max Sharp. He had him or her. Let's take a look at some of his. He was a little more. He had more to say. I'll put it that way. This is Max Sharp.
Year-old about turning his life around and having a second chance at life and making it mean something and being there for one's children and for one's family. So I'm just so happy, excited for Shannon. I'm happy and excited for his grandmother, who I was able to hug, and I'm happy for his kids, and I'm just very hopeful that this is a turning point and there's great things coming in the future.
Max, is this a fair and just verdict, do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The jurors, we asked so much of the jurors, and they really scrutinized the evidence, and they demanded real evidence, and it wasn't there. And so we are thankful for the jurors, and it's just a great day.
Did you have a chance to talk to the jurors?
I did, and I'm not going to comment on the discussions with the jurors, but I will just say I think the fact that they deliberated for 4 days, and also that just the amount of time that they put in, they certainly scrutinized everything, and they did their jobs as jurors, and we are appreciative of that and so thankful.
Can you reiterate again what he was only found guilty on one charge and what that means for the future, him getting released, all that stuff?
So he was found guilty of possession of a firearm on March 17th, not the day of any of any other crimes. It was the day that he was arrested. And there was a gun that was registered to his girlfriend that was found near the scene of where he was arrested. And that's what he was convicted of. Judge Whitaker, we are so thankful to her for having an open mind. A lot of times when you take a case to trial, you just get the maximum sentence for daring to take on the state. Judge Whitaker did not see it that way. She gave Mr. Stillwell a time-served sentence for the time that he is served, followed by probation. Mr. Stillwell has a couple, or I think one other criminal matter that needs to be resolved. I am hopeful and optimistic. It's nothing like this case. It's a case that was picked up while incarcerated. And we're hopeful that there will be a quick resolution to that case, and Mr. Stillwell will be able to get back to his life and his children and his family.
You think he'll be home by Christmas? Is that
I'm hoping. Okay. That's not unrealistic.
I know you don't want to get into exactly what the jurors said, but what do you think their one sticking point was?
I don't think there was one sticking point. I don't think there was. So many people have been watching this case. In opening, I said from the beginning about the witnesses in blue suits and wearing the Fulton County blues, and I think the world got to see how cases can be built the wrong way, just finding people that are prone to lie and talking to them at their most desperate time to try to get them to say things about other people. And I think that's what happened here, and I think the jurors recognized that. And of course, regarding the 2022 case, that was on video, and I think we explained what we saw in the video, and I think the jurors likely saw the same thing.
What kind of message should this verdict send to the taxpayers of Fulton County?
Oh, I don't know about all that. The message that was sent to me is my client has a second chance at life, and we're just so thankful for that. And I know he is, and we are also just so thankful to the press for covering this, and all the people that at some point the public began to root for us, and that did make a difference, and we appreciate all the people that have been supporting us throughout this process, this long journey.
Can you speak to the conditions in the jail?
I mean, and I don't mean to, we know that Shannon was stabbed in the stomach earlier in this trial, while this trial was going on. We know he had to break for a week, or at least a week, might have been 2 weeks for his recovery. I was the only person allowed to go see him in the hospital. And so that was, and then Mr. Kendrick was stabbed in the head recently. So obviously those are serious, and we got to make sure we take care of people, especially people that are not even convicted of anything. And so that's I think it's something we need to address. I'm not blaming any particular person, but it's something as a society and as a city we need to take care of.
All righty. So I wanted to share that last part there because it's critical in terms of these guys being actually released. And we know that Shannon does have a couple little things hanging over his head, which apparently were incidents occurring in the jail. And of course, Jack Gotti, we know on Sunday had an incident occurring inside the jail. And I wanted to, I don't know if folks could see it as well as maybe a quick push in will allow. But, this was not like here he is just kind of from a distance across the courtroom. Okay. So you can see there's a little something there, kind of an inch or two above his hairline. And again, it was described as, I think, multiple wounds. I think that was the best way it was described. And so I'm guessing they were all in the same spot, maybe. But here's a closer version of that. Let me bring this to you here, just to give you a sense of, they usually count, staples or stitches, right? This looks like a lot to me. I'm no expert. I'm no doctor. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 5 staples.
Right, staples.
5 staples. That's a significant wound, and it had to be frightening. This is somebody with a shiv, I believe they call them, who was trying to stab the guy in the top of the head.
Right.
So,
and I did read, and I do know, but it's particularly important because we're talking about Rice here, right? He's in Rice, if I recall.
Yep. He is.
That last year, and I posted about this yesterday, when the Justice Department report came out on Rice, and we haven't forgotten out there that we promised to look into the young man who died, who suffered from lived with autism, and we will get to that, but we've been a little busy on this. I think there were over 300 stabbings in a 8-month period, multiple deaths from the violence in the jail. And frightening that people would, Michael has it, would wake up. There was one that mentioned that he woke up at night and somebody had crawled through a pipe to get into his cell, to stab him. And when people are ready to go out, other inmates don't want necessarily to go out, so they will engage you in these incidents where you try to defend yourself. And just like now, the jail is looking to see who was the aggressor in this. Well, one person has a shiv, and one person doesn't, and one person is stabbed in the head. One person has been pretty much clean the whole time and is about to get out, and instead he's in and gets stabbed when the jury has decided, by the way, that he's already not guilty, right?
Yeah, and you've learned of your investigative skills that this is sometimes almost like a rite of passage where they know somebody's getting out and they will create one of these confrontations to gum up the works.
Right, exactly. Can you imagine that? So if you think that people aren't willing to make a deal to get out of Rice or to to do something at all, we're talking about a different world and all. And he's been in there for what, 2 years? They've been there for like 2 years. It's unbelievable to me what's going on there in that jail. And I know Doug has been very good with the sheriff. The sheriff gave him the personal cell number and all and said, look, we just need more funding and all, but we need a whole change around. because
Yeah.
you need to change around that you got to give bail to people. Like even on these charges here in jail, give them bail, get them out. They're targets right now. They're targets in that
Brutal.
to stay in that jail. And it's brutal.
Speaking
brutal.
of the sheriff's office, this is their comment on the altercation, and it looks like I did a horrible job, and I chopped off part of it. Top of it is Diamante Kendrick, also known as rapper Yak Gotti, and another jail resident were at a physical altercation on Sunday, December 1st. Kendrick received treatment for minor injuries from a sharp object at the Fulton County Jail. I don't know, how many staples do you have to have before it's not a minor injury?
Major,
I'm
right.
not sure officially there. The incident occurred on at the South Annex in Union City, where both were being housed. Kendrick will be in court today, meaning this was issued Monday morning. This is an active investigation to determine the aggressor in this incident and if charges will be filed. So that is what could be kind of bogging down the ultimate release of Diamante Kendrick.
Right, the aggressor, right? You've been acquitted on over 70 charges, including a RICO charge, the longest trial in Georgia. But you got to stay in to see if you, who have the 5 staples in your head, were an aggressor against the guy who has a shift. Okay, no problem. I understand that. That's Alice in Wonderland, type of justice that apparently is still going on there. And even, I think what I guess it was Max said that the public sometimes at one point turned for them, because when this trial started, it was just like, oh, it's a group of rappers, right? A group of rappers. But for some reason, this case garnered the attention because the unfairness started to come through with everything that was being done, Michael.
I will admit that early on, I was probably in that camp of, okay, it's just a bunch of, rappers who their whole music bit is kind of this reputation of outlaw, right? But then as I got into it, obviously that changed dramatically to see what was really happening and what they were trying to pull off in Fulton County. So it's a great day. It's nice to see the system work. I think it's unfortunate. This case is such an aggravated version of where we see prosecutorial misconduct. I mean, we saw it a lot. It may not have risen to the level of legal misconduct, but it was a mess. And we still thought all the way to the end, this could still go against these defendants. That's just the system. You just don't know.
Well, you were traveling yesterday, okay? I didn't have my buddy, except I was texting you on the plane. I couldn't get away.
I know,
from
it's
me,
funny.
Right?
We were on WhatsApp, and that was the only thing I was getting on the plane. That was weird.
WhatsApp. That really is weird. But we were going back and forth, was keeping you apprised of what's going on. And the problem, and we're going to discuss it and it has to do with what the jury asked for, which was the videos. And at one point, the jury asked for a wiretap call between who they thought was Shannon Stillwell and somebody else, right? And it wasn't. And Miss Love just got up there and along with Hilton chimed in. Well, yeah, we'll give that to them. Yeah, we'll give that to them. That's fine. And the judge said, hey, wait a second, it's a misrepresentation to give them that call without telling them that it's not Shannon Stillwell on that call. And so they right to the end, even today, are you going after the recidivist thing? Yes, we are. So he said, okay, all right, I don't have much choice in this, but you know what? Time served and probation. Okay, you wanted to do that? Boom. So
it's just so naive, I think, for the prosecution to think that she's not going to exercise that kind of discretion. They know that she has that discretion. They think she's just going to roll over because they're demanding the recidivism charges and the impact. It doesn't surprise me. It just doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and so here we are rooting, and and we know. And look, we know that Atlanta has a
Thank
problem
you, Sharon.
with gang violence. Thank you, Sharon. Yes, thank you. Spread the word with gang violence. Okay, no one is saying that, but this is the community. The jurors are in that community. They know better than anyone, and they want proof. And I think this is something that we're seeing across the United States. Stop with this bullshit type of charges. Go to people that are really committing the crimes. Go to the actual murderers here. Remember, we do have 2 dead people here, Michael Bryant, right?
Right.
And instead of going after the people that are, well, somebody has been convicted for one of the murders, right? But instead of going after the people that are responsible and doing those type of great investigations, they're just going to say, okay, let's go with RICO. And then even though we can't prove it's any one of them, we can charge them with them, right? And then we don't bring justice. So you have two families sitting in that courtroom all this time who, quite frankly, were lied to and misled. And the family should be mad at Fani Willis, not mad at the defense attorneys here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we know this began at the top. And as we've already mentioned, she didn't have a very good day today. But she deserves it because this is crap the way she has used this RICO statute. I always said from the beginning, very creative, and that thank you. Start
pushing weight again. I tell you what, I have to do that. A jury confirms YSL is not a gang.
Not a gang.
Yeah. And you know what? Even if it is a gang, it's not illegal to be in a gang. I mean, if you went and took, and I don't have tattoos, I want to get one. But if you want to roll up the sleeves, I don't know about Michael Bryant, he may have tattoos. I mean, we're not getting very personal here, right?
I have no
I'm not
ink.
ink, right? My clients are all ink generally, but I'm not. But if you rolled up the sleeves of mostly every police officer, every military officer, guess what you're going to find? Tattoos, all right? I had a famous client, as I said to you all, Aaron Hernandez. He was inked from top to bottom. Football players. You've seen the football players on Sundays? They're inked all over the place.
It really has changed. The perception has changed dramatically. I mean, my son even has a couple now, which my wife is not excited about. But the perception is not what it used to be.
No.
Ink.
And can I tell you all a secret, including you start pushing weight again? Thank you very much. Can I tell you all a secret? The reason why I don't have a tattoo is I really wanted one. But my son said to me, hey, Mom, when you get fat, that tattoo is going to expand. And then you're going to lose weight and it's going to look like you're going to get fat. You lose weight, lose weight, the whole cycle. So I said, you know what? Maybe I won't get a tattoo. If I do, maybe it'll just be here.
There you go.
That's a secret. Okay. I should have left it for our members.
Hey, let's we've been talking about this jury, and of course juror number 56. I had his name here handy. Do you have his name? I saw it somewhere.
Jay Collin.
That's it. Let's listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
He's on Instagram, by the way. He's on Instagram.
Yeah, he's out there. He's out there. This was not any master reporting by me. But let's listen to him. This was probably, 2 hours maybe after the verdict.
I'll report that I was one of the jurors for the YSL court case here in the state of Georgia, the longest court case in the state history. We just wrapped up a few hours ago, delivered the verdict for two of the remaining individuals. A long time, a year and some change. It took us about 4 or 5 days to deliberate. And now we can get back to our normal lives. I talked to my sister not too long ago. I'm the infamous juror number 56, as well as the foreman. And we'll talk more about this court case at some other point. In the meantime, I'm going to relax, get my life back to normal, my regular routine, and get back into friendly skies and travel around the world. And we'll talk soon. All right.
Okay, so I suppose soon is a relative term because I don't think it was an hour. Maybe it was 2 hours. And credit to, I think it's WSB's reporter, Mike, what's his last name?
Seiden. S-E-I-D-E-N.
And this is one of the reasons I like to be on the ground. You generate relationships. And, like I said, in the few days I was there, I got kind of chummy with Yakati's mom. But, you're there for weeks and months as the beat guy, and you generate, some trust and some loyalty. And to be honest, like when I interviewed OJ, it's just because I was there every day, bugging him, asking him questions when we're out in the hallway. So you become a familiar face. And that's clearly what happened with this reporter. So good on him for that. So this is within, I don't know, it may have been 2 hours later. Let me see if I can find this here. Stand by. Here we go. This is after Juror 56 had a chance to get back to normal for a minute.
Telling a real story. What did you guys think about the lyrics, and how much did that weigh into your decision?
I believe in freedom of speech, regardless if we agree or disagree, and it is a very thin line to take lyrics and to put it into trial. he is an artist. He's expressing himself, and I think that we go into a slippery slope when we start to analyze lyrics and music, and that is something that I have to disagree with wholeheartedly. I personally don't believe that lyrics should not have been brought into the format or to be tried. I believe in freedom of speech, and I think that's what he was doing, expressing his music, and he has a huge following, and I wish him the very best.
Man, I like this dude a
Good
lot.
job,
I
State.
like
Good
this
job
dude.
picking your jurors when your case depends upon lyrics. Good job, State of Georgia.
I mean, to me, that's common sense. It's just common sense that you don't elevate lyrics or any art form or artistic expression into evidence just
Right.
because, you know.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the guy
and
who.
the jurors asked for, and we're probably going to talk about this more, but the jurors asked while you were on the plane yesterday for several songs to be played. One was BS, that was it was Yak's song, right? And one was Lizard, something Lizard, right? You guys can correct me about what the songs are. They didn't ask Take It to Trial. Remember, Take It to Trials where supposedly Yak Gotti said, I paid 30 grand to beat 2 murder raps or something like that. Well, then you could probably have 4 murder raps now if you're going to, right?
That's right, because the lyrics suggested something that never happened. You know,
Right,
he
right.
didn't beat a murder rap. So anyway, you could be very selective.
You can be very selective, but I think they wanted to hear the whole song because remember, the state only put in some lyrics, like a couple of lines. They didn't put in the whole song. Now, I have to be honest with you. I couldn't understand a word that was said in the songs, okay? I went looking for them online. Couldn't do it. But, whatever it was. The jury was more savvy than I was.
And, well, they also, I think, got transcripts for most of that stuff, which had to be very, very, very helpful. Yeah, I'm trying to get a hold of Miss Tasha. We're going to see if we can get her on. She as she told me that day, she said, I'll talk, after this is all over. That's when I kidded. And I said, well, I'll be dead by then. That was before the speeding up of this trial.
She did tell you something about, because you asked about
his name,
right? What did you ask her? She said to you.
Well, she kind of acknowledged that the Gotti is from the New York area, famous Gotti family. The yak part, she wasn't quite sure if that was just like yakety yak, which is an old '50s song, just kind of a musical connection and the gangster connection. So,
it's very interesting that you said it, because just now, when you were saying that, just as if I'm sitting on and you're summing to a jury, I would say, well, Yak Gotti doesn't sound like a gay man, because he's yakking and he wants he's the yakking John Gotti, right? He's yakking. So you're not going to tell people you're yakking John Gotti, right? You're a musical singer. So therefore it could mean that you're singing about crime. You're singing, you're the John Gotti singer type bit. So I would then argue, if I were in the jury room, hey, that's what that means. That name has nothing, because they had to get into it a little bit about their names, right?
I'm sure. And the names, the more salacious, the better. Because that helps sell the persona and the whole image that they're trying to make money off of. I get it.
Oh, thank you, drama. Thank you. I love Michael too. We don't want to leave Michel Briant out. Michel Briant, who is going to tell us eventually about the watch, but not right now. We still
we could there's not much to say because we don't know where the hell the watch is. All we have is
the Richard Mille watch.
I think it's Millet.
It's Mille. It's Mille. Not Miller. Like French. Mille. Yeah.
Like AH. Like Mille.
Richard. No one has pronounced it right so far. But it is the white watch. If you go on, you Google
it is not. We have a watch that our friend Ms. Burrito was wearing or holding when she cleaned out the closets there at Jeffrey Williams' house. That one, I believe, has been accounted for. But the one with the white ceramic face and a white band, that one seems to still be missing in action.
Yeah, that's still missing and watching. So I've been hashtagging with, where is the watch? We have a hashtag for where in the world is justice? Where is the watch? Where is the watch? Where is the watch? Okay, all hashtag that and go on next and post it. Where is the watch? Post it at Fani Willis. It's to Fani Willis. Let them investigate that. Okay. How about there's no investigation into that? Where's the investigation of the cops into that?
What's your gut tell you? Is it just misplaced because they're that inept, or are they criminal enough they would steal evidence like that?
Well,
What's your take?
if I am trying this case, I think that the watch was taken. I think the watch was
By
taken. I don't think
somebody
it was
in
stolen.
government, somebody in
Yeah,
law enforcement?
absolutely. Somebody could just, you never want to drop anything, like if you're a body on the street or you have a heart attack on the street in New York and drop your wallet, because most times you'll never find it again. All right. Just talk to people. Just go take a look
Sure.
at all the reports. I fell down and I find a wallet. Someone said to me, don't bring it to the police office. Whatever you don't bring to the police, call the person, open it up and call the person, So that's what I tend to do if I find something.
That's what I think is funny about New York. People are amazed when somebody does the right thing.
Well, I know. And then they're fabulous. There's some
Actually
really great cops.
You're returning this? I remember I lost a phone once in a theater. I just seen, it was the musical, name the most recent musical, but was it Baz Luhrmann who put it together? Anyway, crazy, really beautiful musical, a lot of fun. And I left my phone. It got wedged in like the crease of the seat. It was there for 2 weeks. Audiences coming, going. And somebody with the theater finally found it, and I get it back. Everything, of course, by then I've replaced my phone, but everything's intact. It was all there. I have to admit, I was amazed that in New York, in a theater, that it would survive that long. But it did.
But sometimes you can't give things back. I found a set of AirPods in a cab, right? Okay, so the cab doesn't know where they belong. No one knows where they belong. So I open them. They want to hook into my. I don't want them. They're not my AirPods, right? I could take a serial number. I texted Apple. I then write Apple. I actually sent a FedEx to the head of Apple, say, look, we're trying to give these AirPods back. Wow. Nope, we're not going to take them. We don't want to take responsibility for them. Finally, the AirPods just sat until they died, and I have no idea where they are. They're somewhere, probably here somewhere. But I couldn't give them back. Back, Michael Bryan. This is what happens when you're Catholic and you taught that stealing was a crime.
Maybe they're my son's. He's lost many pairs of them. I think that was an Apple feature. They made them just so they kind of dangle and then they fall out, because then people are gonna have to buy new ones. Yeah,
this is true, and they do fall out. Okay. My husband can't keep a pair of AirPods in his ear no matter what, because they do fall out. You're absolutely right. No, so I know you have to let's go on to the next topic, and you all can text us.
Should we? Yeah, you can. I noticed there was a note from Madeira Beach.
Right, caregiver. Thank you, by the way.
On, that we can Q&A them since we're kind of in the same biz. But I don't discount. We learn so much from the audience and the insights that they bring. And the attorneys. Attorneys. But the people that are watching this who bring common sense to the cases, to me, is fascinating. It's like when you talk to a jury after a verdict. Right. Not necessarily juror 56, although I would love to have him on pretty much any jury.
We're going to try. We're going to try to bring him on.
I'd like to have him on here too. Yeah, I have a feeling one or two people might be reaching out to him right now. I don't know. We want to give him some breathing. We want to give him some breathing room, because he said he was going to wait a little bit till he get back to life. He was going to travel the world. Well, he's already back.
The same with Doug. We said we'll give him a little breathing room because he's got things to do tonight. And we know, we actually talked to Doug. He had something to go to tonight, and all. And we figured, he'll be on, and we'll tell you what he's on, because he's been on, as I said, 27, 29 times we've been discussing it.
He was actually meeting with his former law partners. Just happened to be the timing that they were going to be around and available.
To Doug, first criminal case, you are a star. Okay, to Doug. All right, so we're going to try that. But we got on Instagram, and it's a line of who's who has podcasts or TV shows. Oh, can you come on our show? Can you come on our show? Well, we want to get him on when he can be fair, when he has time, when he can answer your questions, because we're going to have different things to talk to him about. But I love the fact that he didn't think that the First Amendment should be abused in this matter. I thought that was great. Yes. I just thought that was great. Yeah. Thank you. Love me, not the alternate. Oh, I've been trying to get on a jury my whole life. I don't know. I just can't.
We've gone through this. You have not a chance in hell. So
I know.
We've gone through this before.
I know. Speaking of that, we got a lot of comments before you go to the next topic about Judge Glanville, right? I mean, I really
he's doing right now. What's he thinking? What's he thinking?
He's thinking, if I were on this case, they would have been convicted, because he tried to get there. He has his thumb, and he should have taken his robes off, come down and sat at the prosecution table with Miss Love. That's what he should have done, because this case was a whole different case when Miss Love had free reign and argued with him, and even when he was against him, and she changed his mind,
Yeah, right.
all the time. Yeah, right. Come on. I like prosecutors. Some of my best friends are prosecutors. I was a prosecutor, but I really think you should win as a prosecutor fairly, because you're supposed to do justice. You're not supposed to do harm, not only to the defendants, but to the whole legal system and the PTSD we all have, that the possibility that these people could be convicted on this evidence.
Yep. Hey, it's just doing the right thing. I don't care which position you happen to have. Do the right thing, and don't use it to attain higher office or kowtow to your DA. Somebody would have to push back on Fani Willis and say, look, I don't think this is appropriate use of RICO. And I think it's a stretch. And I would at least be on record. I mean, I'm working for her. So if I'm handed the case and I know I have to try it, I'd still be on record that this is wrong. And this is not the case to use this statute on. Now, she might then say, well, let me find somebody who is much more right thinking than you are, but that'd be fine too. But you got to be on the record that this is a stretch.
Yeah, Fani, come at us, because we're not, we're not scared. Okay, we're not scared. You want to wiretap us? Go ahead, Fani, wiretap us.
Yeah, well, there's that story about a juror being surveilled. You want to talk about that for a second?
Let's talk. Yes,
I got nothing. I got nothing on it. No toys to share. But
you don't have it. You don't have any surveillance. You didn't have any surveillance.
I've been surveilling you, and I still decided we should partner up. So. You passed.
Wait a second. Wait, I have to go over and go get the 8 ball over there. I can't reach it. Your 8 ball. That's because even if we're at opposites, Michael and I both have the same core values, which is fairness and justice, and we come to it maybe from different avenues, but that's where we land, and that's why we like each other.
Yep. And it just it's funny how many things we agree on or agree to disagree on, but it's always civil. And it's always, enlightening to me anyway. So let's talk about this.
I know he's thinking that somebody could be so stupid. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding you.
So
I'm just joshing with you. But yes, talk about the surveillance. Did you guys know this? Who's watching this? Did you know that a juror was surveilled today? Right?
Yeah, and the theory was, again, I'm not sure. That there's been any admission by anybody having done this?
Yes, there was. Doug tweeted about it, that the reason they knew was that it had to be disclosed by Miss Love. It was disclosed of something.
At some point,
they had, right?
Yeah, because they had some concern about a juror not living in the county, which to me was a pretty easy thing to determine. And, the evidence suggests, or at least the theory, the allegation is that it was for more than 1 week, maybe 2 weeks or more, where this person was on 24-hour surveillance to see if they in fact lived in the county. Obviously, a juror that the prosecution did not want on the case, or they wouldn't have gone to those extremes. But to me, that's such a simple. Somebody either lives or doesn't live in the county. They have to find extra addresses. They're trailing this person to see where they sleep at night. It was unbelievable. It's such a ridiculous story. I found it hard to believe at first that they would go to those lengths.
Unbelievable, and it was for a series of time, from August or something through September, if I recall, that Doug said. And
I think the first part of October. It was weeks.
In the first part of our weeks, it wasn't. And that's only one that they know about, right? You don't know who else.
Yeah, that's the scary thing. That's the.
And if I'm the juror, right? If I'm now on the jury, hey jury, FOIL or FOIA, depending what it's called in Georgia, you better FOIA. Go find Ashley Merchant, all right? And FOIL all the requests, or FOIA. We call it FOIL in New York. It's FOIA, I think, in Georgia.
Most places.
About that and all the money that's spent, or as to salaries, because apparently it wasn't a private eye. It must have been somebody internal. Because maybe there was more than one juror FOIA'd in terms of being watched or being wiretapped.
Talk about.
We don't know.
Talk about a chilling effect on the jury selection process. If I'm called in Fulton County, I'm going to say, look, Judge, I'm concerned that I'm going to be surveilled by the state. And so I don't know that I can be fair in this case, right?
Yeah. Did you any of you know that? Did any of you watching here know that? Because you've got a lot of people on, right? I mean, there
And
is,
then,
like, it's amazing.
if that happens, if that kind of Q&A happens in an open courtroom, you've just now tainted the entire pool, because now they're saying, whoa, what? They wouldn't actually do that, would they?
Right, right.
And to learn that they would is not helping anybody.
Nothing. So, Emoto 88, thank you very much. So you have the best, the most informed coverage of this trial. I appreciate both of you and your amazing insight. So I like to
Thank you
call
so
it
much.
as we see it, and we tried to give Doug, as you know, a platform here. Also, Michelle Corley, they're driving, but they're listening, and a YSL victory. Yes, and a victory for justice. And we all thank you for watching and donating and all, because we did. We were, I think, one of the earliest ones. I met Doug first at Law and Crime. I think I was the first person he gave an interview to at that point, just before Law and Crime decided they weren't going to have hosts and coverage and do the
You
trial.
did it. It was you in that interview that did it.
No, but he was great. And so as soon as we
course.
got on this, I said, you know what, we really have, because he didn't have his TikTok on yet. He really wasn't using social media like it was. And he got on here and he was just so perfect. And we kind of tried, we made a decision, you and I, to give him our show as a platform when people weren't doing that, because they still wanted to, I guess, curry favor, just in case you're on the other side, right? There's always two sides. The news media right now has this thing, there's two sides to everything. No, there's not two sides to everything. Okay? Not, right, Michael?
Well, there's supposed to be, but there's a lot of slanting going on. So you have to, let's just say this, you have to search harder to find both sides. I'll put it that way. I think there are two sides. You just got to work harder to find them.
Now, I only put this up, I mentioned this, I asked him to put this up for Mr. Kokomo's face, because last week, all of you were on when I said to you, and Michael and I can't do it, that when they showed pictures of Shannon's body, remember that, Michael, and with the tats,
Right,
and I said,
right.
I said, he'd be fine, right? And all of you are chiming in, yes, he is. And the reason why I said that wasn't to be sexist or anything like that, was to say that sometimes when you do something in a trial, like doing that, you have a reverse effect of what you're supposed to have. So the jury was supposed to say, look, he's tatted up, he's got a snake, he's got this, but the jury doesn't see that. What they see is they see somebody who's working hard to get a perfectly formed body and maybe working out and things like that. They see somebody in a different light. So that was my point. But then today I go online and I see that the juror 56 and Mr. Kokomo, who is getting his law degree, wants to be a lawyer because of Max, was always the one who handled the tech for the team, right? And they're saying, well, look at all these fine specimens. And I'm like, gosh, I guess our show was ahead
Look what
of
you
its
started.
time. Look what I started, But jurors sometimes do things like that because it takes away the stress. And just it's all. And right now I see we're talking about Yak Style, right? Yak Style's nice. He could. Some of you said that Kimberly Johnson here. Somebody said that he could be a fashion model. Doug said he could be a lawyer because he's gone to law school. Basically,
I have to be honest, and I would say this to Doug. There were times when you looked across and it looked like Yak was the attorney. That's just quick look. I go, okay, well, what did that older guy do wrong? So.
There we go. Look at this. I mean, there's a whole, go on through all of you. Look at, you're talking about the peacoats. I kind of like the fact you're all talking about fashion because I have.
Here we go.
Here we go. I have this whole theory. When I try a case, when I open a case, I try not to do openings and closings anymore. I try to leave that, and I'll do the backup in the trials and do the strategy and get everything together. Because I don't need to be the whole thing. Open in black, close in red, kind of like the prosecution kind of did, but they did it like ridiculously, right? As an en masse. But also the defense attorney not look so great. Now, these defense attorneys were different. I always believed as a defense attorney, you shouldn't look so great because they think, and one of the jurors said this, the alternate said this, the defense attorneys were just dressed too well. They were too fashionable. They looked like they had money, and therefore she thought that the defendants were guilty. So that was always my concern. So I was kind of like mismatch in a trial. I'm not wearing the backup Chanel. I'm not wearing, all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting that fashion and clothing and all can form the basis for what some people believe. And
there's no doubt
discussing it right now.
And I used to ask, in voir dire, I would ask if there was any problem with a client having more than one attorney, looking like they had a team. Because those perceptions, are sometimes so subtle, people don't even realize they have them, that they have a bias toward, oh, well, you got a lot of money, don't you? You got 3 attorneys there, so you must have done something wrong. So yeah, sometimes these subtle things become so important.
Yeah, Michelle Warden says there are 2 sides, the side of the right and the side of the wrong. Yeah, sure. That could be exactly. I never thought of it that way. And then Cindy Wise is, if I found that I was surveilled, I'd definitely find a way to be out for sure. And that's a real problem. That's a real problem with the whole justice system here. It really is. So let's see. I know we have a lot more to go here. So if you have other things you want us to talk about, put it in.
Well, we don't need to move on. I want to make sure we cover everything we want to cover about this before we do. Let's talk about the future, because I have that the status report, or the status hearing, which I was fascinated by because of the timing, because it's, as I said before, we got your verdict, we got your sentencing, and okay, you got these other defendants hanging out there. And I have tried, now I can shift my focus a little bit, but I've tried to, put together who's left, who's left out there, and when, if any time frame is going to be established. And good for Judge Whitaker for jumping right in on this. Let's take a look at, I want to let this play out a little bit. Subtle things are going on. First of all, you are not going to see the defendants. And again, these are the defendants that were severed out, not part of the case that just completed, did not take plea deals. They are set for trial for various reasons. Some had an illness. Some had a relative that was ill they were taking care of. There were a number of reasons they were severed out from this trial. I'm not sure those are the real reasons. Sometimes you get severed out because you don't want the stink of another defendant to roll over on you. But for whatever reason, they were severed out, and they want to look at scheduling. But because most of these folks are incarcerated, they're in the Rice Street probably. They're in the togs, the jail togs. I almost said tennis togs, not quite. They're in jail togs, and the judge didn't want the camera on them, so you won't see them. But you will hear. It doesn't take a lot of listening. You'll hear like the clanking of chains and stuff as they're moving around. So let me see if I can find it. Oh yes, there it is. So again, this is the status.
Well, what I am looking at, actually says that they would like to record proceedings that commence tomorrow. So and that's from Atlanta News First. That's the only one that has been forwarded to me, is requesting something starting tomorrow, which obviously would not cover today.
So just to tell you what this is about, she's reading a notice that was filed by local TV to record this hearing. They provided the notice yesterday. She has just got it today. And now she's basically on the fly having to rule on it with these defendants kind of hanging in the wings.
And it was forwarded to our public information office at 10:16. So there does not appear to have been any kind of Rule 22 even filed at the time this proceeding started at 9:30. That, regardless, you can tape under the circumstances that you and I already discussed. Just make sure not to show the defendants because they're not dressed out in civilian garb, if you will. All right, thank you. All right, we now have our court reporter. And so before we were officially on the record with the court reporter, I had let everybody know about the verdict that it had been returned in the trial that was ongoing until a few minutes ago in Mr. Kendrick and Mr. Stillwell's case. And it may be that new offers will be forthcoming to some or all of you. It may not be. I don't know. That is not for me to decide. That is for the state to decide.
So let's talk about that real quick, Linda. What do you think? Here you have, if it were any other prosecutor, I might say, yeah, this kind of slap in your face loss might make me reevaluate the defendants that have yet come to trial. Right. I don't know that they will in this case. What do you think?
No, I don't think they are either. I think that there is such a a one-sider. We're going to show, because you know what? We got pleas out of all these people. We got pleas out of them because they were sitting in jail, worried about whether they were going to die or whether they were going to go to prison for the rest of their life for a crime they didn't do, right? That's why you got pleas out of them. And so they're going to continue to follow down that same road unless you change that head. You know, they talk about the snake, Michael, in terms of being the representative of the YSL gang, right? And that supposedly Jeffrey Williams was the head of the snake, right? But really, if you want to talk about the snake in the woods, prosecutors' offices also have a head. And that sets the tone for the rest of the office.
Sure.
And if you're not going to do the right thing here, and that is, hey, we take a look at what you've done here and how much money you're going to cost the taxpayers, and it's going to be a lot more when we're finished. When we're going to finish our show tonight discussing this. It's not going to change. And Fani Willis, I don't think is going to change. Ms. Love isn't going to change, and neither was Hilton going to change.
Well, the judge certainly hung that out there as a possibility. Let's continue here.
And the charges against some of you are very serious. Some of you are charged with murders. Some of you are charged with other very serious felonies. Some of you are just charged with RICO or gang counts. Those are serious as well. I don't know if the state is going to regroup and take a new tack. I have no idea. I would imagine they'll be talking. And I'm just wondering if it might be a good idea to set maybe a new date for a final plea again. I know y'all had a final plea once in front of a senior judge. It wasn't the judge that was going to preside over the trials. I'm happy to do that, but I kind of am going to need to know sort of how each of these cases is going to progress, if there are going to be charges dropped or null pros, if the state is going to move forward with everything. And if there isn't resolution, then we are going to need to sort out a trial calendar, the time needed to try the case, whether there are any outstanding motions that need to be handled prior to a trial. And then if it's going to be a trial, any motions in limine, and at some point get proposed jury questionnaires and things like that. And it may be that it's a little too early, given the latest developments, for the state to be able to have any answers for that. I see that Mr. Abadi has been abandoned at council table and is sitting there all by himself, having been dragged into the case fairly late in the game, much like me. But Mr. Abadi, do you know the answer to any of the questions on how the state might intend to proceed?
I think some of your assumptions are probably correct. I think a new date in the future, the near future, would be the most beneficial for all parties to make sure that we're all on the same page. And if there are going to be any new offers, we can get those a little time to get those to council.
All right, so let's look at a calendar. Yes. Sure.
We were very close to a resolution today that was essentially a time-served offer. Mr. Winfrey's been in custody for 18 months. We have asked for a slight modification to that offer. I would really like, if possible, because I will go into legislative session too.
Sure.
Mr. Winfrey, it's the holidays, and if he is this close to a time-served offer, I would like some consideration to perhaps get his offer done today. If the state feels like they can do it. I know Adrienne is gone. She's left Mr. Abadi here, but I've been texting with her. We were very close to it.
Okay, and that's fine with me, and I'm here all day, and I'm willing to entertain anybody's offers. So,
I have no issue with that. In my communication with Ms. Miller, I don't know if we're right there as it relates to the updated offer.
Okay.
But I think if your honor is available this week at another time, there's a court appearance that we could do, whether it be via Zoom, to take a plea. It sounds like the time is not the issue, it's the specific charges. Okay.
So, and I would assume all of the attorneys know what the pleas were for Mr. Nichols, Mr. Huey, and Mr. Ryan as well.
Okay, let's hold on. First of all, thanks for that clarification on the Gotti name. Mom didn't tell me that Maniac was the formal version of Yak, but that doesn't surprise me. So thanks for that clarification. Okay, so here, picture what's going on in this courtroom because we don't get to see it. You have all these other defendants standing there with their respective attorneys trying to figure out what the hell's going on. I mean, when are we going forward? If we are, is there going to be a better plea deal? The one attorney we just heard from, and I couldn't hear who she represented, but she felt they were on the verge of resolving, meaning something near a plea deal for time served, which seems to be kind of the routine for the state in this case. And so each of these folks is queuing up to tell the court, well, here's what's going on. You're going to hear some attorneys are like, look, I just came into this case. I'm not going to be ready in a couple of months. And I think you'll find her reply to that very interesting, especially in light of the way it drug on prior to her involvement. So let's listen to more of this. Again, people, these guys are all, there's 5 or 6. My list here, I'm not sure is complete.
And I think she had them over. I think she had them over, Michael, because she wasn't expecting the verdict this morning because Doug said they thought the verdict was going to come in tonight, right?
Yes.
Before they left.
Yes.
So she,
was going to get this all done.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Because very efficient. You know, that's you can't count on when a verdict comes in, and she was just filling that gap, thinking, yeah, I got something to do. Okay, so let's listen to more of this.
I can certainly be available tomorrow. If you will recall our discussions at the bench, I'm not sure about my availability after that. But yeah, certainly, y'all work on that. And like I said, I'll be here all day tomorrow. And on and off, I have a couple of other things on my calendar tomorrow, but should be here for most of the day tomorrow as well. Does anybody else have an offer outstanding, or is everybody wanting to sort of wait on what might be coming forth new? Everybody wants to wait. I would too. Okay. Is it premature to discuss length of trial if there is going to be a trial for any of these defendants? And if it is, that's fine. We can reconvene.
I mean, I think it would, my estimation would be no more than 90 days. That would be my estimation.
I think that is a reasonable estimation.
So that was Mr. Adkins saying 3 months if you couldn't pick that up.
Okay. All right. So why don't we look at the calendar and pick a date before...
Oh, you're right. It was Mr. Abadi. You're correct. You know his voice better than I do. Yeah, that was Mr. Abadi. The man who's been left twisting at the prosecution table. Everybody else has fled the sinking ship.
The holidays, would that be reasonable, Mr. Abadi, to think about a final plea date before the holidays?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is everybody going to be around like December 18th, which is a little over 2 weeks from now? Would that be a good day for everybody? People are kind of nodding yeses. Okay. All right. Why don't we set...
Judge, I have a calendar on the 18th. I don't know if that...
All right. We could do the 17th. How about the 17th instead? That's 2 weeks from today.
See, and this is, I mean, Linda, you know, this is the way these things work. And it's, you know, the more attorneys you have, the tougher it is to nail down a date that everybody can, you know, and everybody has their own schedule, but at some point you got to cave. At some point you have to play with everybody else in the sandbox and pick a date. And they did it pretty quickly here.
All right. Why don't we set a final plea calendar for all of the defendants in this case for December 17th, and we can maybe know some more by then, and even for the people who aren't going to enter any type of a resolution at that point, we can talk a little more intelligently about what
Judge,
it's going to look like to move forward.
Because on the 17th, I have a mediation. Can we do the 18th, Judge?
Yeah.
On the 17th, I have a mediation, okay?
And
I
I'm
want
good.
to be here right on the 17th.
Well, I have a feeling there won't be any more plea deals, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see, and I'll fill you in.
To the extent that there is going to be a trial for anybody, I mean, I'm thinking sooner rather than later. The facts and the evidence, some of the charges against these defendants are different than some of the charges that were in the case as it existed with the last 6, but a lot of them are the same, and I think the state should be pretty ready to go. So I'm envisioning, like, by February, we'd be trying the next case to the extent that we're going to be trying any cases.
Yes, Your Honor. Eric Johnson from Mr.
Yes, sir.
The question that I would have, Your Honor, is...
Do me a favor and talk into the mic, because we do have people on Zoom, and it's easier for them to hear. Thanks.
Yes, Your Honor.
You can pick it up if you want. You're kind of tall. I don't think you want to hunch over like
Eric
that.
Johnson from Mr. Eppinger. The question that I had...
Okay, so I want to touch on a couple of these guys as they're being talked about, as we're at least learning some sort of identification. And this is Mr. He said Eppinger, right? He said Eppinger.
Yeah.
So I want to see if and each of these has been updated because there's been back and forth, and there's been charges dropped, and Eppinger. Let's see, he was severed out.
He's got a murder, I think. He's the one that's got the murder charge.
He's
right.
He was recently resentenced to 64 years for a 2016 robbery, which he committed when he was 16 years old. He served 4 of the 10-year sentence that was originally given to him as a first-time offender. Then he got some new charges by robbing a man and some other lesser charges. A gang unit went to arrest him for a probation viation. He shot an officer 6 times.
2 cops, that's it. He shot cops, right.
The cops survived. The cops survived.
Right.
So now he's looking at attempted murder for that case. That just gives you a thumbnail of what this guy is all about. Here we go.
Your Honor, is given the timing and scheduling that we're talking about, how long would it take for the transcript of the prior trial to be prepared? Because I know that there were certain witnesses that testified in the prior trial whose testimony may be used again in additional trials.
So it would, yeah, that it's a good point. It would probably, to the extent anybody knows which witnesses, that would be helpful so that the court reporter or court reporters can focus on that testimony instead of just starting from day one and going all the way through. Because I think if we do day one all the way through, it's going to be a while. And the court reporters would probably like a holiday as well.
Yeah, and it would also cost a fortune. Linda, tell us how important it is what this guy's asking for, what this attorney wants. Oh, yeah,
I'll tell you. What he wants is he wants to, you know, I have a few papers here, but the transcripts of people like Little Woody, snitches, we used to call them, or as we call them now, incentivized informants who have gotten deals to then testify truthfully against somebody who's in the indictment, who hasn't pleaded guilty, who is going to be on trial. And what they say in that in those transcripts that is under oath right here, right? Not just the police statements, because this trial had police statements, right? If they're different from police statements, you could cross-examine them on their credibility. Now you're going to have police statements and you're going to have under oath transcripts to cross-examine them. So he definitely needs these transcripts, which cost nowadays, well, these are probably mostly public defender cases, maybe $2 a page, sometimes up to $5 a page, depending on where you are. And the court reporter has to do it all. I mean, this is a huge amount of work.
Now, having said that, and having once been married to a court reporter, you know, there's big money in paper. I'll tell you that. Nothing a court reporter likes more than when they have a deposition where it's O and 5 or 6. O meaning the original. They get so much for an original page, and they get so much for copies. Just copies.
Right.
So it's very expensive. And so you want to know not just which witnesses you might need, but also what portion of their testimony you might need. And that's just very time consuming. So it was good for this attorney to point out to the court that, you know, we got to factor that into this timing here.
Also, I think Eppinger may be the most serious. I haven't looked at this directly, and you can all tell me if I'm wrong. The most serious of the defendants, the shooting of the police officers. I think he also is charged with a murder, or he had a murder or whatever, but he's a real serious fellow in these cases. Whether or not he's part of a gang or not. See, that's the part that's irrelevant here. I think, Michael, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You and I've talked about this, that if you go after some of these people, maybe for the charges and prove that they're guilty of that charge of which they're guilty, then you've got a case. But it's all this amorphous stuff that you have to be guilty for somebody else. You got to prove that other crime. And then I, who may have met you or don't even know you, I'm guilty for your crime. It's not just a conspiracy, but it's this whole gang RICO thing that supposedly was supposed to be easier to convict. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, well, you got to prove the premise, that the gang premise, okay, and then that gang did something in furtherance of a criminal act, not just, hey, their crime is they did music I don't like. I mean, that's not a gang activity.
Music that had lyrics.
Yes, so
music that had lyrics. By the way, after we finish this, we should talk about the one thing of how the jury today, before we move on to anything else, got to where they are, what they asked for. Because I know you were doing our travel.
Yeah, I couldn't find the music any more than you could, so I got nothing there. But I do have the interaction with the court, explaining to the attorneys that the jury wanted certain things,
including the videos of the cars in the two homicides.
The FedEx video. Yep. Yeah.
So be thinking about if you all are thinking I'm going to trial, be thinking about which of the witnesses' testimony you would like, and then we can have the court reporters focus on those.
And I guess my question, because it's likely Mr. Eppinger will be proceeding to trial, notwithstanding whatever happens resulting from this verdict, is the court going to take into consideration the time that the court reporter will need to prepare that in the scheduling
Well, I'll have to.
Okay. But I will inform her as to which specific witnesses, the testimony that I need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other kind of procedural matters? Does anybody have motions outstanding? You shouldn't, because you've already been to a final plea, but...
Your Honor, I will likely have a plea in guard. Is that something that we can argue in the sentencing?
Get it filed, and I don't know if anything, I mean, I'll have to look, and I'm sure the state might have a response, but yeah, we can go ahead and take care of that, whether it's substantively or on some sort of a other basis. We'll handle that. But please get it filed like before the end of this week.
That attorney didn't identify himself or his client, so we don't know who he's talking about, but there's something that might be brewing there and that client's involved.
Yeah.
I know that Mr. Eppinger does have a previously filed immunity motion that would need to be heard at some point in time.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I don't know why nobody else has heard that already.
It was filed.
Did you all have a final plea date without that having been heard?
It was never called for a hearing. It was filed quite a while ago before his case was severed on the initial trial. So that would need to be heard at some point. That may be dispositive of some of the
Okay. How quick?
Okay, while she's cogitating on that, what's he looking for here? He said he has a motion for an immunity.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. Obviously, maybe the cops promised him immunity and he didn't get it from the prosecutors.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me exactly what was going on there. They kind of knew. They knew what he's talking about.
It
We don't even
obviously
know who
got-
the defendant is.
No, well, I thought it sounded like Eric Johnson, but I can't see him, so I can't tell if it's the same attorney or not. But anyway, that's an interesting wrinkle. Here we go.
It may be. It may not be. How quickly could the state and the defense be ready to have that heard? Because that may be something we can hear before the holidays.Maybe.
I guess I don't know what the immunity motion.
Microphone.
I mean, I assume he's charged with shooting 2 police officers, right?
It's got to be Eppinger.
That is correct, Your Honor. And that is the circumstance.
It has to be Eppinger.
Prior
So
trial
you
would be
really
needed to
immunity.
possibly impeach the witness at that immunity.
So you'd like that even by the time of the immunity motion or the immunity hearing?
I just need the immunity hearing scheduled at a time in which I can obtain that, Your Honor. That would be
Right. That's what I'm saying is you'd like the transcript, or at least a rough of the transcript of, well, you'd need an official transcript to impeach them, of whichever witnesses those are. So you can go ahead and get me and the court reporters a list of those witnesses by the end of the day today.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
so that they can
Michael.
be focused on that.
Yes.
Either in grand jury or at some other hearing, somebody wouldn't talk because it would incriminate themselves, and they had to be given use immunity. at that point, right? For whatever testimony they were going to give to continue to testify. And that's would be something the judge would listen to and then grant, and usually you do it like at a trial. Sometimes you see the lawyers go up a sidebar, there's a witness called and the judge says you won't test, the witness is there with the lawyer and my client's exercising their Fifth Amendment. Well, the prosecution says, well, we'll grant use immunity for the testimony here, and that kind of like as a mini hearing at the side. So that's probably what he's looking for. He's looking for the transcripts where a judge granted immunity.
Yeah, not unlike the Woody situation where he was ultimately granted immunity. And there's use immunity and there's transactional immunity. It's a very nuanced difference. Transactional is a little broader. So he's looking to enforce what he believes was an immunity agreement. And he says it may be dispositive. So that's going to be huge whenever that hearing takes place for his client.
And then if his client wasn't given immunity, then he wants the immunity hearings for everybody else to see whether or not there was something that he can use for his client. So that's it was kind of left a little vague there. They both knew what they were talking about. We kind of were left in the dark.
But he said he filed it, before the cases were severed out, so it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. So
yeah, that's why we didn't see it. I guess that's why we hadn't seen it. You all find that, send them on to us. MJB at
JSTV.com. What are we looking for now?
Your email.
Oh, yes, that'll work.
What's your email? MJ?
Yeah, MJB at justiceservedtv.com.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
And then I will find out from them their time estimate, and we'll set the immunity hearing at a time after those transcripts are available.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the immunity motion is related.
So it would be related to the shooting of the two officers. So
The state could be ready tomorrow.
okay, well, we can't have the transcripts ready tomorrow, but I hear you. So we'll be waiting on the transcripts, and as soon as those are available, we can set that.
I don't think he has an immunity right as it relates to the shooting of the two officers, which are arrest warrant, which they were trying to execute on Mr. Ettinger. It seems like a waste of the court's time.
So I don't want to get into substance now, but if the state has not filed a written response and would like to, go ahead and get that in by the end of the week.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Anybody else with outstanding motions?
Your Honor, not an outstanding motion. Thank you. Attorney Terrell Dart for Mr. McMullen. I was just appointed and filed an entry on this case August 5th.
Okay, let's go to our notes for defendant McMullen so we can kind of bring you up to speed with what's going on. Here we go. Demise, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he is AKA Nard. He had an attorney. You just heard this guy say, I just got into this case. Well, this is not his first attorney that has either come or gone. He is only on the indictment for, at this point, counts 1 and 2, which we know are the RICO and murder. So let's see what he has to say.
So I don't have any discovery or anything. I'll be concerned trying to be ready by February to try this.
Oh, you can get ready by February. You're a defense attorney.
I hear you, Your Honor. I'm just letting the court know.
This is going to be a 90-day trial this time, not a 2-year trial.
I hear you.
And I am sure that Mr. Abadi will provide you with all of the discovery. It's in about 1 million Dropbox links, but I bet he'll consolidate it into one for you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Okay, you know how that feels, Linda. Give it the old college try, but the judge says, no, right?
You're a defense attorney. I've got all these other cases to do too. I just not this case, by the way, his client is not one of our walkthrough girls. Sid points out that if this were Effinger, the other people were discussing in the wiretaps how crazy he is. That's not the client you necessarily want to not be ready for in a trial, but it's not this guy's client. So.
Yeah. Yikes. Okay.
And frankly, whomever the prior attorney was on the case really should already have discovery and it's their responsibility to provide that to you. Do you know who the prior attorney was?
Not chance.
Your Honor,
Good help.
I have no idea who that.
I don't even think he knows who it was. And this thing's handed around like a hot potato.
It may have been.
I don't either offhand, but that might be a route to go as well. But Mr. Body will get it to you. What else?
It sounds like a body's on his own.
Your
in
Honor,
the
I have
next
a
case,
request on
right?
behalf of Mr.
It sounds like
It
what?
sounds like a body's on his own. They're all fled.
Yeah.
That's it. You wanted this case.
Yeah,
That's like
he's.
you.
I'm telling you, his coworkers have vacated the building.
Mr. Mender?
Yes, ma'am.
Nicole Fagan on behalf of Mr. Mender. If we are going to have another final plea.
Okay, hold on. You heard the name there, Mr. Mena. Mr. Mena, calling Mr. Mena from my notes. I know I have him in here somewhere. Give you an update on where he is and what's going on.
Miss Lily
with
710.
this.
Here we go. He's about to tell you who Nicole Fagan is.
Let's see. Hold on. I know I had it in here somewhere, Mr. Mena.
Well, maybe not.
Oh, let's see. No, I do. Don't. Yeah, it's actually Mender. So I think I misheard her. I think because it's Nicole Fagan. I think she identified herself. He's looking at 50 years in prison. He's on counts 1, which is the RICO, and then 44, 45, 46, which I believe are possession. I don't have my updated indictment in front of me. But it's 50 years max. They offered him, we got a little info on the existing offer, 16 years, serve 1, and then the rest 15 years on probation. So, and probation terminated after 10 years. You have no violations, very similar to what Jeffrey Williams has going on. But he has another outstanding case with another judge and prosecutor. So that's kind of jamming up the works, and he would not accept that plea. So keep that in mind if this moves forward against Tranquarius Mender, a.k.a. Nard. A lot of people are Nard. It's very popular, a.k.a. Stunna. So he's turned down 16 years, serve 1, and 15 on probation. Here we go.
On the
Now that's
17th,
represented by
if we
Nicole
could
Fagan.
request that the state have all offers, whatever's on the table by the 14th so that we can communicate so it doesn't happen in the rush of the moment.
Sure. Yeah, I guess we're not in my regular courtroom, and this is not my regular team of people, but my rule is that the state needs to have the final offers to communicated to the defense at least 2 business days in advance of the final plea. The 14th is actually a Saturday, so let's say by close of business the 13th, 5 p.m. on the 13th, all offers need to be communicated. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, who is Melissa Reynolds in the waiting room? Anybody know? It could be somebody with I guess one of the prisons. So let me go ahead and admit them and see.
Or it could be anybody.
Was it you, Linda? Were you in the waiting room?
Yes.
So I'm going to look for
Is
a
that
link.
Mr. Adams? Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry that he missed most of the status conference, but if you can update him, and are you able? I think that all of the prisons have the ability to let y'all Zoom privately with attorney and client. Okay, and I can even leave y'all if you'd like in a breakout room after this is over with, so you can catch him up. I think we can do that. My staff attorney is saying no, we can't. Why can we not?
Okay, I think that's pretty much all the insight we have for the remaining defendants. We didn't hear from everybody, I don't think, but it gives you a sense of where we are and what's going on as the rest of these cases move forward. So very
Now,
interesting.
this is an interesting comment. Kimberly Johnson said, a body being abandoned is so telling. Heard him tell Caleb Bumpus loves mess. Now, is Caleb Bumpus back into this? Who's back into this? Or just signed on as Max's co-counsel for Stillwell on the other remaining things that he expects to be finished this past next
I don't
week.
think it's Ms. Bumpus, but
I don't think it's Ms. Bumpus,
she was
somebody
called
else.
in last minute to do Lil Woody, and that was about a day's worth of work. So we'll see. So it's moving forward. On the 13th, we'll learn something more. We'll learn whether or not there are additional pleas that are accepted that will further reduce the number of remaining defendants. If there is a trial, and it sounds like at least for Mr. Effinger, there's definitely going to be a trial.
They're definitely going to trial him.
He's got some heavy weight, and that'll be maybe February, maybe.
Maybe. I can't wait anyhow. But before we get on to discuss what we think is a lot of issues with Fani Willis, okay, we should talk just a little bit about how the jury got here. Remember, they first came out and they asked about the watch. They wanted to know if Doug Weinstein said, admitted that the watch was his client's or the watch, okay?
Right,
And
right.
Doug said, I didn't say his. If
I
did,
think
it was a
I was
mistake,
thinking
right?
about it. Here's what I think happened, and I didn't go back and re-rack this. It just made sense. He probably said that watch, and they heard Yak's watch, something like that.
Something happened,
Something
right.
that was very similar sounding. So you want to hear some of their requests? You want to hear a little of that?
let's hear some of the requests. But what I want to do is tell you that it continued through watching the video go backwards, right? And we should talk about what you think they wanted to see by re-racking the video backwards. But let's listen to the progression.
Yeah, this is just some of the requests that they had made.
Good morning, everybody. We have a couple of, well, they're not really juror questions, but juror requests to view some of the evidence. So they want to hear, I guess, the music and lyrics to, I have a hard time reading this juror's handwriting, but I think it says Literal Walk and BS, which they think are exhibits 227 V, Victor, Victor, Bravo, and then 12A. Those may or may not be the exhibit numbers, but they think that might be them. They would like the FedEx video zoomed in, if possible, during the shooting, and they want to see cars 1 through 4. So that portion of the video. The FedEx video played reversed after Stillwell runs the red light. And then the gas station footage after the focus leaves the gas station, they say 30 seconds after. I don't know if that means up until 30 seconds after. But anyway, those are their 4 requests. So can y'all gather those particular pieces? And once you have those ready to go, we'll have the jury out.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. I'll take the lyrics one because we both love that one so much. First of all, I'm glad that they were willing to, explore that. But I really think, and we've talked a little bit offline about this, that this was a situation in which somebody, not the majority, somebody wanted further evidence that the lyrics weren't helpful, that they didn't create what the prosecution said they created in terms of gang connection or criminal activity. And they just needed one more bit of evidence that would confirm their belief. I think otherwise, it would have taken much longer after the request for that evidence to make a decision. And we think that was related to the Yak Gotti charges, right? So again, lyrics, we think it was ridiculous to ever have them involved. The jury seems to have handled them the way they should have. What do you think about the FedEx, the video, and the pushing in on the video and the reversing of the other video?
Well, it was kind of interesting because I first thought, and in the sequence of what they wanted, that they were looking to see what car Yak Gotti got into. That's at the gas station. And whether or not the car the prosecution said that went behind the gas station, which the prosecution said was like the murdering car, whatever, involved in the 4 cars, whether that did it appear like that was the one that Yak Gotti was in, not Stillwell, that Yak Gotti was in. And they look different. There was a sunroof on one. There wasn't a sunroof. There was a 4-door
one was a hatchback.
One.
But yeah,
the hatchback. There was a whole bunch of differences, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what difference that they were honed into. And then with regard to the video being played backwards, that was really interesting. I think they wanted to see if they could see better going backwards, right?
It's like the Zapruder film in the JFK,
Yeah,
forward and back. Forward and back,
Yeah, but they were clearly, that's one of the things you want to tell the jury, because they were very specific on what they were specifically looking for, right? They knew what they were looking for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that was first with the Yak Gotti, and then they wanted, I think and that was also dealing with we had the 2 murders. Remember, we have the drinks murder, right? So we have 2 different videos. We have the nut murder. And I think they were more focused on the drinks murder because I think on the nut murder, they thought that little Woody was the doer. I just think that's my impression, that they spend more time on the drinks homicide.
I would agree. And thanks to Walkthrough Girl, Kayla Bumpus is now back in, but as Shannon's new attorney on the remaining little skirmishes he had while
co-counsel with Max,
incarcerated.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So not for one of the new defendants we've been talking about, but for some of the stray Shannon Stillwell issues. So thanks for that.
So what did you all think? You all were watching as much as we were. We were all trying to parse that, but it was very clear to me when they stopped considering Yak Gotti. It was just very clear that it had to do with what car he got back into at the gas station. That to me was it. When they played the lyrics of the songs, they played the whole songs, the whole lyrics, didn't mean anything, didn't mean he killed anyone. And then they just went to their final question, was he in the car that that was the Drinks homicide car? It was very clear it wasn't. They were able to confirm that, I think, by that fourth car that came in. Remember the fourth car came in? And then there was a car that backed up and turned around and all. And they were pretty clear that at least on the homicide car, the murdering car, that Yak Gotti wasn't in there. Then they go to the FedEx. And what did the FedEx video show, Michael? Because I think that's where they were more concerned. Also,
they wanted the push in, and I'm really not sure what they were looking for. They wanted it to better show what it was the prosecution wanted to use the video for, but I'm not sure. It wasn't specific enough to me as to what imagery they were looking for. I mean, the video itself, we know, but what were they specifically looking for on a tighter shot? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, and that is one of the things that we're going to get more of a clarity on as the jurors speak, either individually or in unison, because they knew. And that's the thing that people don't understand. When you have a long trial like this, the jurors, by the time they get to it, and then we can make fun of OJ all we want, but OJ, they were sequestered. That was even worse. They were in a room with nothing for months, for almost a year. But here, it's almost a year. They get to go home, but they know what they want to see. They know the issues by then, because it's not like a 2-week trial and you got to go in. And remember, I told you there were two types of jurors. Ones that comes in and say, "Hey, we know what we want to do, guilty, not guilty," and the other ones who just want to find things for themselves. And there's certain things that they wanted to find for themselves. They didn't want the prosecution feeding it to them.
And there's a whole socialization too that takes place. There's the alphas, there's the followers, there's who's going to be the one to speak up first, and I mean that dance takes some time. But when you've been together on and off for a year,
you could have it.
You kind of get to know personalities, and who's going to be taking charge. And our juror number 56 probably knew he was going to become the foreperson very early on.
I think the jurors probably said that. Hey, you were the one to speak out. You weren't afraid to go out there.
That's right.
You could lead us.
Yeah. Knock yourself out, pal. Okay. Before we leave, we got to make a decision. Yeah. We got so much junk. I mean, important stuff. We can get to it tomorrow. You want to do the Fani stuff now, and then we'll push everything else till tomorrow.
And we'll tell everybody what we're going to do tomorrow, which is going to be some of this too. But let's do the Fani stuff only because it happened today. Yeah.
Okay, so jump in. Where do you want to start? Because she had a few things not going well today.
She had a lot of stuff not going well. There was an argument before the appellate courts of Georgia about whether or not the subpoenas by the legislature, and that's the case. That's the legislature we watch. Ashley Merchant, our friend, has been on the show. By the way, you can go back and look at our interviews. They're all in Justice Serve TV. The 3 interviews we did of Ashley Merchant, who's right now on medical leave until Christmas time. But as to whether or not subpoenas that body issued, legislative body, to Fani Willis can be enforced. The former governor, who Fani Willis at one point thought should be special counsel to investigate Donald Trump and everybody, that other case that's out there. He argued on her behalf, and then we had arguments for the legislature who said the subpoenas were valid. He argued they were not valid. I mean, I thought he was like a wackadoo because he said something about, at one point he said, this case is only about sex. Hello? No, it's about whether you give your partner who you're now sleeping with $1 million, and was that a basis of misuse of taxpayer funds? But, call me prudish. And I'm a
Yeah,
Democrat, by the way. I make no bones about it with you all because I call things fairly.
please, you don't need to apologize. You don't need to apologize.
I don't apologize. I was once a delegate in a national convention. I was a whip on the floor. But when I see things, a whip, yeah.
Back to the sex thing again, you go. So this was Roy Barnes, who he was a governor in Georgia for a while. He's in the legislature forever. He just reminds me of a good old, I could picture him wearing a seersucker, suit and just talking to the folks. He has that way about him. But I was not impressed with his arguments. The two arguments really were, this committee does not have the power to subpoena, period. Subpoena power is very specific. They don't have it. That was argument number one. Number two was, well, even if you find they do have the power, it was so overbroad that it's just not, we can't comply with that. So those were the arguments made in favor of the state. Now, the judge, not surprisingly, decided to take it under submission until she could talk to Fani about it. I mean, to see if she comes up with a reasonable solution. And again,
supposedly he has juice. The former governor supposedly has that word juice, and so that's why.
You would think. I mean, you would think he has to, in some sense. But is that going to be enough to protect?
Not here
Ms.
on
Willis?
Justice Serve TV. Not here on Justice Serve TV.
No.
There's no juice here.
But if I would hope that in and of itself doesn't sway, the decision-making process. But hey, I'm not an idiot. Who knows? It could happen.
And then there was a second one. Fani Willis isn't that good. She default judgment, right, was entered against her by an organization that usually goes after Democrats, right?
Yeah, this is,
What was that about?
I keep getting confused all the different actions against her, civil and criminal. There are two different civil document record request cases. The first one, we saw Ashley argue this about. This had to do with where's all the money going? Where are these funds being spent on Mr. Wade, right? Mr. Nathan Wade, because he got, some say, up to $1 million to do this work that was probably 20% of that in terms of normal salary. So did she or did she not misappropriate public funds to pay him? That is a pile of documents that Ashley went after, and that is still pending as far as I know, right? That one's still pending.
Right, that's still pending.
That was taken under advisement again by the judge in that case. So then the other documents they needed were those that related to the Trump matter and all of the connective tissue between Fani Willis, the government agencies, everybody that put their heads together before bringing the action against Trump et al., all of the defendants in that case, of which Ashley Merchant represents one of them. So that one was decided today, and that one was decided in Ashley's favor. They've got to cough up a lot of material, Fani Willis's office. Do you have the list in front of you by any chance? I had it here earlier. But
I don't. It was so large, and we could talk about it more tomorrow night.
It's voluminous. It's voluminous.
It's voluminous. Right.
Yeah.
It's absolutely voluminous. All right. So it was a bad day for Fani Willis, right? I know she was reelected, so she probably thinks she has free reign here. But you know what? There's a new sheriff coming into town. Now, I don't want to get political here, okay? But, we have said on this show that we think that the office should be investigated for the misuse and misspending of funds, all right? And we've made no bones about it. And again, I say that as a beloved Democrat who I was not happy with, I don't like elections being sided one way or another, but that's not the issue. The issue is money being misspent. And I think that, look, if I hired Nathan Wade was his name, right, and gave him $1 million, and I started sleeping with him, even if it's after, it just has a smell. It has a smell that maybe at that point somebody should have said, hey, wait a second, we're not going to give you public funds. It's my money. It's one thing. My money is
the taxpayers are getting screwed left and right from her office, either in how she's pursuing cases or in the time spent pursuing cases. It's all taxpayer money. And she is blowing it, and it's wrong. And
taxpayer money. And today, in that default judgment, she may have to pay the money that the other side used to sue
fees
her.
And fees.
And that's taxpayer money.
And they're going to have a hearing to determine that. I think it's December 20th. They're going to have a hearing. Basically, it's like a prove-up hearing in a case. If you win, okay, well, what are the damages? In this case, they would ask for, bills and whatever expenses were incurred in getting her to comply, because now she got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really, so those were the other things. I know we're coming up pretty soon against the end of the show. We do want to discuss a couple of the things that then we'll probably do tomorrow at great length. Michael worked very hard getting all this ready for you. We mentioned that we're going to do it, but Michael, what are they? Let's do them just quickly and discuss.
Well, yeah, just a couple of bullet points.
Bullet points.
We'll just do the bullet points.
Where are you going to be tomorrow? You're going to be where?
Yeah, well, Daniel Penny, the jury had the case for about 2 hours or so. They had one question that had to do with a jury instruction, very important, relating to the use of force. As you'll recall, Daniel Penny is on trial for the death of Jordan Neely, the subway vigilante, the subway hero, depending on which way you turn. And he put him in a headlock because he was, or a chokehold, because he was, in the mind of Mr. Penny, threatening the people on the subway car. And in the minds of many of those who testified, really not on his behalf officially, because they were part of the prosecution case, but a lot of folks who said, hey, I was afraid for my life, and I thanked the guy afterwards. So manslaughter, second-degree manslaughter, manslaughter is the top charge, 15-year max, and then 4 years max for criminally negligent homicide. So the use of force is huge in this case, and the jury asked to have that instruction. I guess they weren't given the instructions to take with them back to the jury room, which is, it's hit and miss.
No,
sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. So they needed to see that, and they want to see that again. That happened about halfway through the afternoon's deliberations. They'll be back at it tomorrow. I'll be at the court tomorrow if they have any other questions. And, I'd be shocked, really, if they don't have a verdict tomorrow, but what the hell do I know? But
yeah, I'd be shocked if they don't have a verdict. Yeah, but you're going to be there for that. You've been covering this case. You were in this case before you left to do our discussion of crime overseas. By the way, if you haven't seen his travel logs, we are going to do a bunch of things concerning overseas crime in the upcoming year. But yes, what else was there that happened today? Quickly.
Well, Ashley Benefield was sentenced. You recall, she was the woman who was found guilty of manslaughter in the death of Doug Benefield. She said that she was cornered in her room, couldn't get out, had no other choice, and shot him dead. She was given 20 years plus 10 years probation. So we've got some. We'll do this tomorrow. We have family members reacting to the sentence because it was a little more wide open than that. I think it could have been even higher. Let me check my notes on that real quickly. I don't want to get bogged down on it, but I believe it was 25 to life was possible. So she did get out from under the top charge, if you guys will remember. Remember, she used self-defense, and it was, sometimes we call it incomplete self-defense or imperfect self-defense. That's how you end up with this manslaughter lesser charge. So anyway, that was her deal. And Sarah Boone, my friend from Florida. Oh man, she is just as annoying at sentencing as ever. So we have some video of the mother of George Torres, and as we know, George was zipped into a suitcase, apparently of his own doing, but then after that, maybe not so much his own doing, and he ultimately suffocated in that suitcase. And she was charged with his murder. So his mom spoke passionately and emotionally at the victim impact statement. Then she gets on the stand. Sarah Boone gets on the stand. It is. I just carved out 5 minutes of weird because I can't stand to listen to her much more than that. But she's a mess. And then the judge will do the sentencing. So we'll have that for you tomorrow. But the sentencing was it 30 years? Why did my notes aren't? I think it's 30 years.
Sarah Boone was life.
No, it's life.
She went to
life.
jail for life.
That's right. It was life. And the question becomes
whether
or
not,
without
parole.
Yeah. And so her attorney who picked up the case,
Bye, Sarah.
kind of late, number 9, he was arguing, look, just the mercy of the court. And by the way, the prosecution offered 15 years. So could you keep that in mind? The judge did not. The judge
sometimes when you have a
like
client, you got to tell them why they need to take this deal. Right. You got to tell them why they have to take this deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that case, it was clear she was going to get convicted of at least manslaughter. Anyhow, so we have a lot going on tomorrow. I assume there's going to be a lot more also happening with YSL. We're going to try to get some special guests on the show either tomorrow or during the week. We'll be working on it. And Michael, depending, I guess, when the verdict comes in, we'll either do the show tomorrow at 6 to 8 or 7 to
Yeah, well,
whatever.
we'll see how we'll feel that out during the course of the day. The later they go without a verdict or with a verdict, we'll kind of push our time a little bit. So probably 6 or 7-ish. That's kind of the target, unless it looks like there's a good reason to push it beyond that. So
yeah,
appreciate everybody joining in. Like, share, comment. What else are you supposed to do?
Thank you. No, you have to say.
No, I'm just.
Michael Bryant.
I'm actually taking your line. That's right. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. So yeah, and then check out the membership stuff too if you'd like to do that. But in the meantime, try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. And if you like us, please subscribe to our channel, like our channel, share our channel, and you'll get notified, hopefully. And thank you, Ronger. I love you too. I mean, I'm one of those people that loves everybody. Okay. See you tomorrow night.